Hello and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to start using Playmaker to add some simple FSMs to our game. If you're new to Playmaker, a FSM is a finite state machine, and we make those down here in our Playmaker editor. If you don't see a Playmaker editor in your view, you can find it under the Playmaker menu at the top, and then Playmaker editor, and then dock it wherever you would like. A state machine needs to be attached onto a game object. It could be our camera, our light, our player ship. It could be a game empty, but it needs to be attached to something. The first one that I want to create is just a simple declaration for my ship. I want my player ship to be declared as a variable game object, and that way in the future other game objects can send information to and from my player ship. So in order to add an FSM to this player ship, I have it selected, and then in the editor window, right click, add FSM. You can see now that the object that this state machine belongs to is the player ship right here at the top, and that the name of this state machine is FSM, which will change here in a minute. Below the description, we have a state 1, represented by this node block here, and then a start flag representing that when the game is kicked off, this is the first state that will be fired. Above this in the window, this first tab will show me any object in the scene that I currently have a state machine on, and it will allow me to jump through those objects quickly down here in the editor. And then to the right, it's going to show me a list of FSMs that show up on the currently selected object. And this is kind of just a nice way of jumping to and from things as we get more and more of these in our game. What we're going to do here is declare this ship as a game object. And I need a container to store it in. And in this case, I want to use a global object so that I can refer to and from it a little more globally in the entire game as opposed to just locally. We have another window under the Playmaker tab. If you go to the Playmaker Editor's Windows tab and then down, you'll find this Global Variables tab. And there's other ways to get this open, but I like to just keep it docked down here by my editor so that I can jump in and out of it when I want. What I want to do is take the game object player ship, and I want to store it in a variable that can hold a game object by name. And down here at the bottom of this global window, you'll see that I have variable type. And if I select that, I can set this to a numerous number of different kinds of variables. And what I want in this case is game object. And then now that I have the type selected, I need to name this. And so I'm going to call this my player ship. Keep it simple. And then there's that little trick. If you do the space underscore and then give it a name, this will show up later as a little tag. I'll show you how that works here in a minute. Once I have this created, I then just come over and click add. It's going to tell me, hey, you're about to create a global, which is what I want. And then now in my list, it's showing me that I have a variable named this. It's this type of variable, and it's also telling me how many times I'm using it in the game right now, which is none because I haven't told it to do anything just yet. Alright, so now that I have this container created, I'm going to go back to the Playmaker editor window. And I'm going to start by naming this state machine. So on the right side here, we've got these 4 tabs. Go to the FSM, and I'm going to name this my variable declaration. And that's what this is going to do. It's going to declare this object as a variable type. Now the way that we get this to do that is we come back into the editor and we select this state node. And first off, I need to name this as well. So I'll call this VARDEC, just for short. And then now I need to add an action that can do that for me. So below the state, you'll see the bottom of this, we have action browser. And you can pop this open. You could dock this somewhere if you would like as well. What I need to do is I need to tell somehow this object to be that variable container. And the way we do this is with a setGame object. When you find that, you can drag and drop, or you can double click, which works too. You can select and enter. There's a few ways you can add it. We can have as many actions in this as we would like, but one of the things we need to keep in mind is they fire off in order from top to bottom, and so you may need to keep certain things running before, or another thing maybe needs to be moved up, so it happens before to keep these things sorted. At the top of this action, it's asking me what variable I want to set, and I'm going to click on this tab, and I created a global variable. So I'm going to go to the globals tab and pick my player ship, and notice because I used that space underscore, it left this global as a tag on the right, which is kind of handy. So after selecting that into the variable container, I then need to tell this window what object we want that container to hold. Since I haven't prefabbed this ship, I can simply drag and drop it into this box. This we need to be a little mindful of. If I later down the road decide I want to prefab this ship, I'll need to refer in this box to the prefab itself and not to the object I currently have in my hierarchy. Okay, so now that we've done that, there's a handy little debug box down here in the left corner of the state window. And if that is turned on, you can see what the variable contains. Currently this variable is empty because this happens when the game runs. So now that we've created our first FSM, let's hit play and let's watch what happens. We're going to see over here this turn green, which means that state is now active. And if you look into the state window on the right, you can see that the setGame object, the player ship global container, now contains the player ship. It found it and it stored it inside this. And so we've successfully created our first FSM. Also to note, there is a checkbox for check every frame. I only need this to happen once. Once this ship is saved into this container, I don't need to do this again. If I have it checked every frame, it's just possibly going to loop. There are times where we want something to do every frame, but in this case we just want this to fire once and be done. So with our state machine named and the state of action declared with a name and set up with an action inside, we are pretty much good to go with this FSM.